I arrived at the banquet early, dressed neatly, smiling, and ready to join the celebration. But just as I reached for the door, the words hit me. Sorry, you're not invited. Leave. At first, I thought it was some kind of cruel joke. Then security stepped forward, and my father's voice rang out loud enough for everyone in the lobby to hear. Get this beggar out. My name is Lana Hartley. I'm 35 years old. And no, I didn't scream, cry, or cause a scene. I stood tall, glanced at my mother who refused to look at me, caught the smirk on my sister's face, and walked away in silence. My footsteps were the only sound I allowed to speak for me. What they didn't realize was that every detail of the party they were so proud of had been paid for by me. The elegant venue, the catered feast, the embossed invitations, the Airbnb rentals for relatives, even the champagne tower my mother insisted upon. All of it had come from my account. They thought it was from my father's retirement bonus, but it wasn't. For years, I'd been quietly footing the bill for moments like these. I got into my car, exhaled, opened my banking app, and started cutting ties. $7,200, the catering charge, reversed. $12,000, the honeymoon flights for my sister, canceled. $4,800, my mother's spa retreat, gone. $52,000, the beach condo they flaunted as Dad's retirement legacy, frozen under my LLC. In total, $76,000 pulled back into my hands in the span of an hour. By the time I reached home, I had 56 missed calls. Some from family, others from numbers I didn't recognize. Then came the pounding at my door. I peered through the peephole and saw my sister's husband, disheveled, red with anger, clutching his phone like it was about to explode. The moment I opened the door, he barked, "You need to fix this. They just canceled the banquet food. The hotel won't release the rooms. Our honeymoon flights were voided mid-check-in." I leaned on the doorframe. Strange. Sounds like someone forgot to confirm who was actually paying for all of that. His eyes narrowed. "You did this because they kicked you out." I shook my head. "No, I did this because they forgot the one rule. Don't bite the hand that feeds you, especially if that hand is holding the receipts." He tried to peer past me, maybe searching for regret, maybe looking for my parents. But regret doesn't live in my house. I held up the thick folder I'd kept ready for 3 years. Every page was filled with contracts, sponsorship agreements, cancellation clauses, all signed with my LLC's name. Every one of them gave me sole authority. Every one of them backed the reversals I had already processed. "I warned them," I said calmly. 3 years ago, I told them if they kept treating me like a bank, I'd start behaving like a banker. His voice rose. "You're punishing the whole family." I smiled. "No, I'm protecting my investment and cutting my losses." "They're your parents," he shot back. "They called me a beggar," I reminded him. There was no comeback for that. He muttered something about lawyers and stormed off. But the truth was simple. You can't take a fight higher than the one who holds the contracts, the ledger, and the backups. I shut the door behind him, walked to my desk, set down the folder, and pulled out a fresh one. On the tab, I wrote a new label. It was time to start drafting a different future. By the next morning, my inbox was a battlefield, 32 messages lined up like soldiers, some wrapped in politeness, others sharp and hostile, all dripping with panic. My mother's email was the first. We didn't mean what we said. Emotions got the best of us. "Can we talk?" My father didn't bother with words, just a forwarded invoice from the banquet hall, unpaid and demanding restitution. But the one that almost made me laugh came from my cousin. A screenshot of the family group chat, the one I hadn't been included in for years. "Lana's always been sensitive. She'll come crawling back. She always does." I didn't crawl. I replied directly to their little echo chamber. Just a reminder, I own the crawl space. Locks have already been changed. Silence followed, and I thought that was the end of it until my phone pinged later with a message from someone I hadn't expected. My parents' accountant. He wanted to discuss irregularities. Payments for the beach condo hadn't been coming from the trust, he said, but from an LLC he'd never seen before. "Mine?" I asked. He confirmed. My pulse sharpened. Then came the question I had been holding onto for 3 years. Have they ever declared that condo as an asset in annual filings? His pause was all the answer I needed. They tried to spin it as a gift from a private family investor. No proof. No paperwork. A lie. So they hadn't just lied to me, they had hidden the condo and used money I provided to build equity in something that technically still belonged to me. This wasn't ingratitude anymore, this was fraud. The accountant asked if I'd be willing to sign a declaration for tax purposes. I said yes, but only after calling my lawyer. How fast can we make the condo and every unpaid cent legally untouchable? I asked. 48 hours, Reed said. Perfect. Because this wasn't about family anymore. This was about the law. By noon, the paperwork was ready. A cease and desist for slander, misrepresentation, and unauthorized use of funds, plus a property reassignment that stripped my parents of any verbal claim to the condo. Reed slid the papers toward me. They'll try to call your bluff, he warned. They already did, I said. That banquet was their bluff. The process server confirmed delivery within the hour. Just like that, the celebration they had thrown to parade their perfect family had become a financial trial. That night, my phone buzzed with a voicemail from my mother. Her voice was broken, frantic. You're destroying us over what? A misunderstanding. You always do this. Always so dramatic. Ah yes, dramatic. The word they'd always used to dismiss me while I quietly picked up the bills. But she wasn't finished. If you follow through with this, people will talk. At church, in the neighborhood. Your father's reputation. There it was. It had never been about love, never about truth, just about appearances. Their brand of unity. The glossy family portrait that covered the rot beneath. I let the voicemail sit unanswered. I didn't need her guilt anymore. The next morning, something far more important arrived. An email from my accountant. Subject, account transfer confirmed. Beach condo title finalized. Done. Legal. Permanent. Their prized retirement dream, locked away from their reach. Filed correctly with interest for the taxes they dodged. Reed's email followed. You've closed every door. Do you want to take it one step further? My reply was immediate. Yes. Full audit. Start with the family trust. I want to see every dollar since 2017. Because they hadn't just humiliated me at that banquet. They had feasted on my back and called me a beggar at the same table. Now it was time to make them pay for every chair they sat in. The audit was a knife cutting through layers I hadn't even known existed. Reed's forensic accountant traced it all. $18,700 siphoned off the week I graduated, supposedly for emergency repairs, but actually spent on my sister's kitchen remodel. $9,000 marked as education expenses, but used for my mother's front row concert tickets and a spa retreat. $34,000 tucked into my father's antique car restoration, the same car he bragged was his reward for raising such responsible children. They drained the trust dry, then had the audacity to brand me the beggar. Is this criminal? I asked Reed. Only if you want it to be. I didn't want prison bars for them. I wanted the weight of accountability. So we filed a motion, financial recompense plus documentation of every trust misuse. They had 30 days to respond or settle in private. That's when the mask cracked. A text appeared from my mother. I'm scared, Lana. Please don't ruin the family over money. We'll make it right. I stared at it for a long while. No apology. No responsibility. Just fear. And fear, I realized, was the only language they had ever truly understood. When he accused me of wanting to ruin everything, I answered with only one line. You're mistaking ruin for revelation. The following morning, my sister took to social media with a perfectly curated sunset shot and a self-righteous caption. Some people only care when money's involved. At least I know who my true family is. I didn't reply. I didn't need to. They could posture online all they wanted, but in court, hashtags meant nothing. Only signatures, receipts, and proof carried weight. And suddenly, the sibling they'd once dismissed as too emotional became the one they had to justify themselves to. On the 22nd day, their lawyer finally reached out. His email reeked of formality trying to mask panic. The offer, a private settlement of $50,000, no admission of guilt, wrapped neatly with a non-disclosure agreement. Reed read it and laughed. They're scrambling to plaster the cracks before the neighbors notice. But I didn't want to pay out. What I wanted was a record, An undeniable history that showed I wasn't the outcast they painted me as, but the person who had been their silent lender, their fallback, the one they leached from while pretending I was nothing. So we refused. 3 days later, my father finally appeared. He walked into my office, the one he once mocked as your little hobby, and stood in the doorway, hat twisting in his hands, pride dangling by a thread. "You've made your point," he said, "but you're about to destroy us. Are you really proud of that?" I looked at him, remembering how he once toasted my sister as the true success in front of a room full of guests, and I answered calmly, "No, I'm not proud. I'm exhausted. I'm done financing your lives while being cut out of the story." He tried to speak, but I raised my hand. "You all called me a beggar, so I stopped giving. And now you've suddenly remembered my worth." He didn't apologize. He didn't break down. He simply placed a blank, signed check on my desk. I slid it back across the wood. "This was never about your money. It's about mine." The moment he left, an email alert blinked on my screen. Court notice. Alleged trust misappropriation. Preliminary hearing scheduled. The date was official, and this time they couldn't ignore it. Not a banquet, not a birthday. This wasn't a celebration. It was an obligation. Word of the hearing moved through the family like water through a broken pipe. At first a drip, then a flood. They hadn't believed I'd actually push it this far. They never do. They count on silence, on shame, on the black sheep staying quiet while they feast. But I wasn't the help anymore. I was the witness. Read. And I prepared everything. A timeline, bank statements, screen captures of messages asking me to spot them just this once. Every invisible loan, every unacknowledged bailout now documented. The night before court, my sister sent me a message, her first since the night they threw me out of the banquet. "If you go through with this, I'll never forgive you." No apology, no denial. Just a threat disguised as sentiment. As if my healing depended on her approval. I didn't answer. Some people don't want reconciliation. They want you to return to the version of yourself who kept quiet. The courtroom was stark. My parents sat opposite me, stiff-backed, flanked by a lawyer who kept glancing at his watch as though time itself might undo what was written. The judge asked basic questions, and Reed answered with numbers. He laid out charts showing how payments for the condo had flowed directly from my company, how the trust had been siphoned into vacations, spa packages, cars, all under the label of family necessities. Their attorney objected, insisting it was just a misunderstanding born of casual arrangements. But the judge wasn't swayed. She turned to me and asked, "What outcome are you seeking, Miss Hartley?" I stood, steady. The truth on record. Nothing more. Let the facts match reality. She nodded. Her ruling wasn't dramatic. It wasn't handcuffs or flashing headlines. But it was binding. The siphoned money had to be restored into the trust. The condo title was formally transferred to me. And my parents were barred from further access to funds they hadn't earned. Reed called it elegant justice. I called it balance. After that, silence. No phone calls. No, we didn't mean it. No last attempts at guilt. Just emptiness, the kind that falls after a stage performance ends and the curtain drops. Weeks later, one envelope slipped under my door. No address, no stamp. Inside was a single photograph, the family banquet, everyone dressed in silver and navy, glasses lifted in toast beneath the chandeliers. In the background, blurred but unmistakable, was me walking away. On the back, in someone's handwriting. This was the moment it all fell apart. I stared at it a long time before feeding it into the shredder. Because what fell apart wasn't family, it was the facade of it. The illusion built on my money, my silence, my hunger to belong. Once that burned down, what remained wasn't ruin. It was freedom. That same day, I opened a new folder on my desk, Hartley Foundation. Its mission, supporting first-generation women who were clawing their way through school without a family safety net. The seed money came from the condo sale. My condo, my choice, and for the first time in years, every step forward felt entirely mine.